Hello, everyone. My name is Jenny and today we are going to talk about the astrology of February. I just have a couple of things that I wanted to talk about before we get started. For those of you who are on my Facebook page, you know that I put up a post the week of Christmas about a family who had lost their second son in 3 years. It's a single mother. Those were her only two children. And in the span of 3 years, they both died of drug overdoses, and I know them personally. I don't know her so well, but I knew the boys. They're associated with my son, and I met them that way. And so a lot of you left very kind messages and sent her a lot of healing energy, which is very much appreciated. And Greg from High Vibes Creations made this for her. It's the Carmague cross that is associated with Mary Magdalene, and I just think it's so beautiful. So anyway, I wanted to share that. I told Greg that I would share it, and it just didn't seem like, the energies in January we were ready for that. I didn't want to talk about that story too much, but, with all of this Neptune, Jupiter energy that we have going on this year, that can be, Neptune is like illusion and escapism, and a lot of that, and drug use and alcoholism. It's also celebrity, where we can get caught up in the of celebrities and all of those distractions. And so really, if you know people who may need a little extra support, who are sober but maybe struggling, really, keep that in mind for the whole year, that there's just a lot of potential for people to get carried away with addictions and escapism, things like that. So anyway, thank you very much, Greg. That was so kind of you. And I'll leave his information in the description box below for those of you who he makes a lot of. I've shown before my medallion that says Astrology for Ascension. I can't find it right now. Oh, well, there it is. But he makes all different medallions that you can just keep with you. So you have that energy with you all the time in that gold color. Gold has very special properties. It's not gold, but but gold-like, gold-filled. So we are going to talk about February. We're wrapping up this very raucous month of January, where I think we've all been through. Metatron is saying the spin cycle. Felt like that a lot of January. I ended up there was so much of an energy of overdoing in the month of January, and I did that. When I added those extra times to my schedule, which was already really full. And so I ended up getting sick last week, and I know very well that whenever you have any physical symptoms, that's something that's out of balance energetically. When we go through times of upgrades and downloads, the creator doesn't give us anything that's going to make us sick. That's just that old story about the creator doing things to us that aren't, so kind. That's something in the subconscious that we're still running. And, I talk a lot about the subconscious because scientifically, nothing to do with spirituality, but scientifically it's proven that 90% of the choices that we make are governed by what is in our subconscious. And everything in your subconscious is all the lifetimes that you've lived up to this point. And I know, like, I get, people tell me all the time that they're ancient. They've been here thousands of years, millions of years is what it is. And it's not like, you go up there and you do for a few years and then you come back. A lot of people go up and come back, right? Boom, 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 boom. And sometimes because of the way timelines work, that can actually overlap too. But that's more for my class, that I'm going to talk about things like that. But you can hear I'm a little nasally because I got sick last week. I had long time ago made an appointment with my teacher for yesterday, so couldn't wait to talk to her to find out what that was about. And Metatron said that I needed to do a healing because I felt guilty that I had made myself sick in order to have some time off. So that's why I got sick. I just went way overboard with my schedule, overscheduled myself, which is why I have not been on YouTube so much either. So I'll make some corrections to my schedule so I won't have to get sick again for that. But yeah, anytime there's a virus, that's always linked to worthiness. And anything with the throat is always something that's, stuck there that you're not speaking. I noticed a lot of people, and I talked to people all over the world, a lot of people everywhere got sick, like right after Christmas. A lot of people had throat things coming up. And that was just a lot of that where people were biting their tongues, is what Metatron is saying. Something where they wanted to say things over the holidays, but they didn't let it out. So whatever you have to do to let that out in a kind way, you want to do that rather than make yourself ill like I did. So yeah. This week now, the reason that this video was scheduled to go on a week ago today, so this is the 28th, and I was going to make it on the 21st, is because I wanted to talk about some things that were happening this past week, but we'll just start from today, the 28th of January, okay? So beginning on the 26th, we had Saturn move into a sextile, which is a very nice energy, a communicating energy with Neptune, okay? So Saturn is like the reality of the situation and where we're building something and where we're constructing something is what Metatron is saying, and Neptune is the dream. So these two energies are going to be speaking in this sextile, which is a lot about choices and moving forward and bringing like practical ways of building and how to make something last with the dream, and the dream like being way out there and what you want to create in your huge vision that you have for the future. This is about like the tools and like the pieces of wood, like what's needed to construct the dream. And that's going on through mid-February, but pretty much all of February's energy is governed by that Saturn sextile Neptune, okay? So we can also be talking about, someone in a position of leadership or authority, and maybe lies being exposed about them, something of truth coming to light about them. That's a great possibility with these energies as well. And then I wanted to also mention that January 28th today, Chiron moves to the 29th degree of Pisces, where the fixed star Sheet is. And Sheet carries like both of the, every body up there has the duality, right? Just like we do. So Sheet is like divine inspiration and things that just come in from the cosmos where you're like, wow. But it's also great sorrow. So it's like the extremes of Pisces. Pisces and Neptune are, spirit and realizing that we're all connected through the energy of pure unconditional love and having great compassion and being intertwined and interwoven into all that is. And it's also prisons and mental institutions. So, and Neptune, like I said, is where we can get carried away with things. But this is not an easy energy to handle right now, especially coming off these two very serious eclipses that we had this month, which were both speaking to endings and beginnings. Both the new moon and the full moon were about endings and beginnings and change. And that's because Uranus is finishing up in March 6th. He's going to move from Aries into Taurus and wrap up that story that's been going on. It would have begun around 2010, 2011. And during that time that Uranus was traveling through Aries, Uranus being freedom, and Aries is the self. And so it's about personal freedom, something that's holding you back in some way, no matter where it falls in the chart. That's just the overlying energy. Okay. So whatever, like if it was in your 10th house, then it would speak to something with your career. If it was your 4th house, then it might be about your physical house or something of your family or your ancestors. So it depends on the house, but personal freedom is the story that he's been going over with us. And from 2012 to 2015, Uranus squared 90-degree angle with Pluto, okay? And that happened 7 times during those years. And that was when there was a great like unleashing or release of something, okay? Because Uranus and Pluto, which I have in a very telling, the way that they aspect each other in my birth chart, those are very powerful energies, okay? That are speaking to change and transformation. So from 2012, I know a lot of people woke up during those years. And that was what I've talked about, where I had that dream of 7 black tornadoes coming out of the sky. I didn't know astrology. And I'd always had dreams like that, but I didn't know what it meant at all. And then right before the last square, I heard an astrologer say, the last and final of the 7 squares. And I realized that was the dream that I had. So that's what we're wrapping up that story, that energy now, okay, as Uranus moves into Taurus. Yes, he moved into Taurus last May, but this is the final time. He will not be in the last degrees of Aries again until the year 2101. The last time that Uranus was in Taurus, that was when and this is coming up because the Holocaust Memorial or Remembrance Day was yesterday. I have relatives in the family that I married into who survived the Holocaust, and my mother converted to Judaism from the fundamentalist Christian church as a pastor's wife when I was a child. So I've known a lot of Holocaust survivors throughout my life. And the last time that Uranus was in Taurus was when Hitler rose to power, Mussolini came to power. A lot of stories of bondage is what Metatron is talking about. So, and the darkness is always serving the light. So we don't know how it's going to, now other things were happening with the planets too. I want to mention when Uranus was in Taurus the last time, but we don't know exactly how it's going to play out, that our values change. Okay. Because when Uranus went into Taurus, people were fine with electing dictators and pointing at other people and saying it's their fault. It's their fault. It's their fault. Now we'll see what happens now over this next 7 years, 7 years, that Uranus is going to go back into Taurus on March 6th. But that was why we had the eclipses, not the only reason, but those eclipses speaking to change is about that change that's coming. And what he's shown me in relation to that is that around the end of February, sometime between the full moon, end of February, okay, and some people will describe this as a gateway, as a portal. I'm just going to tell you how Metatron showed it to me, was the timelines. It's really hard to describe this, you guys. But the timeline, it looks like a giant tube with other smaller tubes coming through it, okay? And they don't all end it's not like something that's sliced. It's like they all have different endings. And then there's another tube, I don't know how to describe it, that lines up, and they come together, and of course they come together perfectly synchronistically, and they flow then. But that's happening around the end of February. Okay, so whatever is going on in your chart, like wherever this fell in your chart, those eclipses, and wherever Uranus has been for you since 2010, 2011, that story is of change and releasing is most likely going to play out in some way at the end of February. Now, the eclipses will move to a kind of we're still in them, the eclipse energies, but those energies will be kind of the backdrop energy once we come to this new moon on February the 4th. Because then we're starting with the new fresh set of energies. But the way Metatron's showing it to me now, that's actually the way it's taught in astrology. But he's showing it to me now that's going to be playing out pretty much through the full moon that's coming at the end. I think I wrote it down, but I believe it's the 19th of February. So, all right. So February 1st, we're going to start off with a bang because Mars in Aries, Mars is the warrior. He's on fire, flying through Aries, and then he is going to move into a square. So that 90-degree angle energy with Pluto. Now think about, Pluto as the phoenix, as rising from the ashes. That's a lot of firepower that we're talking about in play right away, February 1st. Before that, in the weekend leading up to it, that's fine. So February 1st, sorry. We're going to feel that right now, like starting on the 28th. Well, 28th is kind of early, I guess, but probably by the time you watch this, like the 29th of January, it's only a few days out. The first, so when the energies come to be, for people who aren't sensitive energetically, they'll feel it more that day. But for other people who are more sensitive, you're going to feel that building, 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 and then you'll feel almost a release. I always feel more of a release when it actually happens, because it's like, oh, thank God that's over. But, you know, Mars and Pluto are the co-rulers of the sign of Scorpio. So when they're speaking in a square, I don't feel like it's so much of an argument, but they're both very powerful and they're both very forceful, is what Metatron is saying. So that's happening on the 1st of February. And then also that day, then we'll feel Venus, relationships, love, money, moving in balance, also balance, moving into the energy of a trine. So she's at the end of Sagittarius, a fire sign, and Uranus is at the end of the fire sign Aries. So they're speaking in those fire signs in a harmonious energy. Remember that Venus is the ruler or at home in Taurus, and Uranus is just about to move into Taurus. So they're having a conversation. It will most likely be something to do with an imbalance in the market, well, with money or relationships, okay? And so that's February 1st. Then the 2nd, the moon in Capricorn is going to meet with Pluto, with Saturn, and then with Pluto. In that order, Saturn and then Pluto, the 2nd. So the 1st and the 2nd. I would be very surprised if that was not reflected in the markets in some way. May not be like that very day, maybe before, maybe a little bit after. On the 3rd of February, because I just for those of you that don't know astrology that well, when the moon is meeting up with those guys in Capricorn, you know, Saturn, that's very serious energy. They're in the sign of banking. Pluto is death and transformation in the sign of banking and institutions. So this could be anything with the government as well, or leaders. February 3rd, we will have Mercury sextile Jupiter. Mercury is in Capricorn and Jupiter is in Sagittarius. No, I'm sorry, that's not right. Mercury is in Aquarius and Jupiter. He went so fast through Capricorn that I was like, wait, is he still there? Nope, he's in Aquarius. So whenever we're talking about a sextile, it's something to do with the choice. It's a nice way that they're talking to each other, but Mercury sextiling Jupiter is something with the choice to do with like news that points to progress, some kind of opportunity that could come up, and it's a perfect setup as Venus moves into Capricorn the next day, and we have that new moon coming at 15 degrees of Aquarius. That's happening at 9:03 p.m. Central Time. No, sorry, that's 9:03 p.m. UK time, London time, Universal time. So 9:03 p.m. is 3:03 p.m. Chicago time. So just adjust for your time zone. That will be on Monday, the 4th of February. So that weekend, this coming weekend then, leading up to that new moon, be really careful how you talk to people and be really careful about having to be right. Because Mercury, the way that Mercury is in relation to the sun this week, and then especially when he is speaking like that with Jupiter, can be like, I'm right, you're wrong. I don't care what happens. I'll burn this house down before I tell you that you're right and I'm wrong. A lot of that. And then you've got Mars square Pluto, you know, playing out too. So you want to just kind of, maybe, you know, just not let things go in one ear and out the other. That would be a good idea for this, especially when it comes to politics, to political stuff. Not a good time to be getting into that kind of conversation. So this new moon that's happening in Aquarius is with, let's see. There's the moon and Mercury and Lilith are together there with the sun. Okay. So the moon and the Mercury and Lilith being together. Mercury is about things moving and like our thought process and communicating. And it's also a way, like it rules the markets too. So with Black Moon Lilith there, Black Moon Lilith speaks to our independent streak, women not being seen as less than, women not being subservient to men. And Uranus, where this new moon is happening, is the sign of rebellion that doesn't like the status quo. So I found that quite fascinating that they're all there together. But this is a seed that you would plant that will bring freedom from restrictions and also to humanity. Uranus is the sign of the water bearer. It's the sign of, it rules the house of humanity, friendships, groups that you might join. So something to do with seeding things, even Uranus being the higher octave of Mercury when it comes to intelligence or communications. It could be something that you launch online, or maybe an idea that comes to you about being able, something that you do in relation to that, or a new group that you start up. Also, Mars, well, I don't need to show you, but I'm going to look myself. So Mars is on top of Aries. And Aries is spelled Eris. Aries is a body who is classified the same as Pluto. And in mythology, Aries is the sister of Mars. She's actually larger than Pluto, but we didn't discover her until later. So Aries she gets a kind of a bad rap. She gets, I know sometimes she's called like the angry divine feminine, or disgruntled, or she causes disruption and distress. And she can be that, just like Mars can be like that, because they are kind of the same energy, but she's the feminine aspect of that. And she also fights for the human species to evolve. So I found it fascinating that at the time of the new moon, which is ruled by Uranus because it's in Aquarius, Uranus is exactly like within 1 degree of the asteroid Magdalene, which is Mary Magdalene, and then Archangel Raphael, and then next is Eris and Mars. They're all clustered up there together. Also, then we've got Sedna, which is the patriarchy, like in a way that caused women to really be just basically bartered for and sold. That's the story of Sedna. And she's right with Juno, which signifies partnerships. She's retrograde there, and they're in what's called a semi-sextile with Uranus at this time. Also, Venus was trine Uranus. So that's also something about relationships, and there being a change in relationship, a change in balance with money, balance with relationship, balance with the feminine. So it looks like a fabulous new moon. Good time for, this fresh energy coming up. Venus in Capricorn. Venus will move there right before the new moon. And Venus in Capricorn, then she'll be answering to Saturn. Venus in Capricorn tends to like the finer things. She's also very careful. Nobody really gets away with a whole lot while Venus is in Capricorn. So that's a nice energy to have around. But don't forget, when I made that video, I'm going to have to take a drink of water, you guys. I had to reschedule people because I lost my voice. My throat didn't hurt or anything, but I really couldn't talk. So yeah, Venus, what was I talking about? Oh yeah, the reason that, like, that video that I made called my gosh. Oh, the end of corruption in relation to the United States was about the meetup of Saturn and Pluto. And the South, all of the Saturn, Pluto, and the South Node meeting up happen less than a year from now. And just a little bit less than a year from now. But we're already feeling that. These are big boys. They're only 5 degrees apart right now, Saturn and Pluto. And the South Node's coming right up to Pluto pretty quickly. He's also about 5, so they're basically 5 degrees apart. It's like Saturn, Pluto, South Node. South Node always, it has a connotation of something negative, something that you want to leave behind, that you want to move away from. It's the tail of the dragon, not the head. And, I talked about it in the video, so I'm not going to go into the whole story again, but we're going to keep feeling that energy the whole year. And when I said to Metatron, do you want me to say that 2019 is the year of change and shifting? And he was like, boundless opportunities for growth. And so I was like, okay, so do you want me to not say that he was like, and boundless opportunities for growth? So what he's saying is reach for that energy. Reach for the energy of opportunity and growth and expansion. Saturn and Pluto can be about authorities or things that are blocking you in your life coming to some spectacular, it's the Tower energy, okay? But it can also be where we like if someone has a Saturn Pluto aspect, depends on where it is in the chart. But if you've got like Saturn Pluto South Node, that can be like a lot of resistance to change, where you're just like, I'm resistant. This is the way it is, and this is the way it's going to stay. So we'll see how it all plays out. And, like I said in the video, the end of corruption, that energy takes a long time to play out. That's not something that's just like, so they could meet up and then we start feeling that, or we could start seeing things fall apart before they even come together as far as banking and government and authority figures. So we shall see. But that full moon that happened in Leo was definitely speaking to leadership. I mentioned it was answering the eclipse, the new moon eclipse that was on Donald Trump's ascendant in 2017. And I thought it was, I think it was, I don't remember. It was like a few days before that the story came out that the FBI had been investigating Donald Trump as an agent working for the Russians. I really feel like that's nonsense. But I do feel like the whole story with Donald Trump and the reason the whole wrecking ball scenario that I talked about in the video is that as these investigations are done for him, what I'm really, really cheering for and pulling for is that the investigations lead to a whole lot more than him. Do I think that he's out there as a Capes Crusader, like trying to bring these things down? No. But I think that because of his presidency, it could be that happens. It's possible that things come to light that would not have come to light had he not been president. So that's all I'm going to say about that. And then on February 7th, we've got the sun sextiling Jupiter, and then the 7th through the 9th, the sun sextiles Jupiter, and then Mercury sextiles Mars, and then Uranus. So what that's telling me is that from February 7th through February 9th, leading up to the 10th, because Mercury enters Pisces on the 10th. So let's say the 7th through the 10th, there's going to be a time of choices. It's choice time. It's time to make decisions. It's time to decide how you're going to move forward. What opportunities do you want to call in? What do you want to manifest for yourself? When Mercury sextiles Mars and then Uranus, again, it could be something with the markets. Mars and then Uranus, Uranus is the energy where you can say something's definitely going to happen, but you can't say what the heck it's going to be. This can also just be an inspirational energy. Sun sextiles Jupiter could be like some choice that you're going to make about traveling or higher education or coming to higher consciousness, something inspirational. That's the February 7th through the 10th energies. And then on the 10th, Mercury enters Pisces. And the moon then meets up with Mars and Uranus. So it's sort of like a hangover of that energy from when Mercury sextiled them. That's why it was saying the 7th through the 10th. And then the moon meeting up with Mars and Uranus too. We want to be careful how we're dealing with men that day. And that means for men or women. On the 13th, Mars then moves up and conjuncts Uranus. They've been, Uranus has been answering to Mars just about all of these past 7 years. And then Mars had that very, very long trek through Aquarius this year when he went through and did the retrograde. And we all remember that last summer from 2018. So now they're going to actually meet up before Mars then moves into Taurus on February 14th. So Mars enters the sign of love. Mars is sex and men, and he enters the sign of love on February the 14th. But Mars doesn't necessarily like being in Taurus. Mars likes to be able to fly free and blaze as quickly as possible, and Taurus likes things slowly and easily and likes to take its time. So good energy for planting the seed when you have that February 4th new moon, and then plan to do something to implement that, because Taurus is Earth on the 14th of February. On February 17th and 18th, Venus sextiles Neptune. That's a very nice energy. Venus is in Capricorn, and Venus in Capricorn is serious. She's not wasting her time with people who don't give her the respect that she deserves and don't honor her in the way that she deserves. There could be some answering for people that have been out of integrity as that Venus sextiles Neptune. On the 18th, then the Sun will sextile Uranus, so that's more of a raucous energy of change, and that happens as Venus conjuncts Saturn. So that could be where the cold hard reality of the relationship or whatever it is that's out of balance, could be money, that all will be, something will come up about that then on the 18th of February. And Chiron then on the 18th of February enters Aries. Chiron, Chiron is the original wound of separation. And Chiron entering Aries, then we'll be looking at the wounding of the masculine, the wounds that we caused as the masculine, and then the wounds suffered by the masculine for having done all of the lifetimes that we did when we were the masculine. I know for me, when I don't know if I've talked about this on YouTube, but the very first lifetime that I went into when I was a warrior, and my job was to kill people. And I remember that feeling of shutting off, just letting things happen and doing those things without allowing myself to feel the emotions of it. And this is why Metatron, when he talks about like seeing lifetimes as one continuous lifetime, not just like lifetime, lifetime, lifetime. He always talks about seeing it as one timeline is what he's saying. Because as we incarnate, we keep those stories in the subconscious. We're carrying those in our DNA too. And so it's important for us as Chiron moves into Aries now to do the healing for the stuff that we went through as the masculine and the things that we perpetrated on the feminine as the masculine. Those are the most difficult healings that I do. And I'm talking about personally, are the healings where we, polluted, Metatron is saying, the masculine, and then brought the feminine down, brought the vibration of the feminine down. And then the Sun will enter Pisces on the 19th of February, and we will have our full moon on the 19th and 20th. So that will be in Virgo, the sign of practical magic, as Metatron calls it. And then it's sometime a little bit after that then that I saw those timelines meeting up. When we change timelines, we don't really, unless you're, doing that kind of work, there's not like an alert that goes out, but sometimes you can just feel a spring in your step or, just a change in your energy. I think it'll be nice as we start going into these things that we've been talking about doing, that to actually see them coming to fruition. I wanted to mention that the Congregation of the Emerald Fire meeting will be on Sunday, the 3rd of February at 11 a.m. Central Standard Time, and that link is in the description box below. All of the links to wherever I am on social media, they're all in the description box below. My website is there. I still have the sale going on through the end of January, third off, and I have added a lot of different packages, because after you do the initial session now, the charge for just doing the healing sessions will be less once you've done that initial. And everybody, I want you to stay warm. Chicago and then Australia, like, wow, you guys are really going through it down there with the heat. And we've got this polar vortex situation where 45 degrees below Celsius for a few days this week. And for those of you that don't know, for everybody in the United States, I assume you know that we're about 50 below in Chicago, but I know it's like a huge span of the country. All the Great Lakes region is going through that. So that's why I'm wearing a sweatshirt and a turtleneck today. And so anyway, if you'd like to be part of the YouTube live with me, I'm going to be doing one of those next week. Just click that little button at the bottom. It looks like a bell to get notifications, so that if you want to ask questions while I'm doing YouTube live, you'll get the notification by email that I'm doing it, and then you'll be able to be part of the conversation. I'd like to say some things in relation to Doreen Virtue and Donald Trump that I'm going to wait. I have not watched anyone else's videos in relation to those things, and I'm not going to. I just feel like, as someone who was part of the fundamentalist movement and was indoctrinated as a young child, that I do have a lot of things that I'd like to say about it. And so hopefully, no, I will have time for that next week. So anyway, take care, everyone. The eclipse energies we're almost done with it. Just got to get through this last weekend, and then we've got that beautiful new moon. Use this coming weekend as it's a great time to release. 3 days before the new moon is the dark of the moon. So it's a perfect time to do releasing. And so everybody plant your seed on the 4th of February. See what kind of revolutionary things that you have to come up with. And then also, Aquarius is a very powerful sign. It's the water bearer. It's a great energy to start something new then on February 4th with that new moon. All right, everybody, take care. Bye-bye.